On today's edition of the show, it's a new day, which means it's a new game for the Florida Panthers coming up. We'll talk about more of the fallout of game one, what Paul Maurice and Radko Gudas had to say after practice today, and we're going to discuss some of the scores from the day one of the first round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, April 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez. You can follow me on Twitter at Monoman12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And also follow the Instagram page as well at LO_FLA Panthers. And if you are an everydayer who comes to this podcast and loves hearing what we have to say here on Locked On Panthers, make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. So, Cats fans, it's game day. The Florida Panthers have an opportunity to tie this series at one apiece. The mission, as always, when you're the team to not have a home ice advantage is, of course, to try to get to at least split the first two games before you return back to your barn down in Sunrise, Florida. But it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So let me bring in my guest, Jacob Winans here. Jacob, welcome back for a playoff edition of Locked On Panthers.
It is awesome to be here. There were definitely a lot of times this season I didn't think we'd be recording any playoff episodes together. So I'm super excited for this one. Even though we're down 1-0, there's much worse places to be. So
yeah, down 1-0 in a game that I actually found this out 15 minutes before we got on and recorded. That was a game where the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins it was the most watched Stanley Cup playoff game ever on cable television, where ESPN PR said that they had it at 1.3 million for their broadcast on ESPN. Of course, a lot has to do with big market team in the Boston Bruins, best regular season of all time, and of course, it's still year two of this new TV deal that the NHL has. So it's definitely had an impact on viewership for and access to NHL games, and of course, it's helping with what's going on with the regular season with the ESPN Plus package. I mean, for a very low price, you get to watch a lot of your out of market games. So it's a plus, no pun intended, at least for us in the US, that you get to watch your out of market teams, even though there's still issues with like blackouts and all that stuff. That's something that we cannot deny. That's for sure. But Jacob, I want to get your thoughts on game one. The Panthers, of course, dominated the possession, had the more 5-on-5 time, pinned the Bruins in their own zone, but still unable to get in the dirty areas to overwhelm Linus Ullmark. I want you to give your thoughts on what happened in game one.
Yeah, I think the Bruins are you really saw their experience. That's a team that's been there and done a lot in playoff hockey. They came out and they were really great at weathering the storm, because the Panthers really did dominate the first half of that game without question. The Bruins were really opportunistic. You get a power play goal, they get a lucky one for Brad Marchand, and then another lucky one if you think about the third goal, that the one that somehow just sits on Alex Lyon's pad. That'll probably never happen again. It's a 1 in 100 play, and unfortunately we got hit with the one, which it happens. But I think the Panthers really played the right way. They didn't look out of place. First half of that game, they controlled the pace. They were in control of possession time. They were forechecking hard. They matched the physicality. So it's there for the Panthers. They're capable of contending in this series. They can compete and they can win this series. what really made the difference, again, a couple of things that have been the story all season. It's special teams. We lost the special teams battle, giving up a power play goal and then not matching with one of our own. And then it's just not being able to capitalize on chances. The Panthers outshot the Bruins for the majority of that game. There really wasn't a time where we were getting outshot for long stretches. The Panthers had full control, had a lot more shots on goal. But again, like you said, they weren't getting to the dirty areas. There wasn't a lot of traffic. There weren't a lot of rebounds. A guy like Linus Ullmark, he had a career year this season. He's a front runner for the Vezina. You have to get traffic. You have to make it difficult for him. And the Panthers didn't really do enough of that. So it goes back to being able to capitalize on the chances. The Panthers are going to get chances. They're one of the best offenses in hockey. Even when they struggled this year, they didn't struggle to score goals. The chances will come. They just have to be able to capitalize, because in the playoffs, they don't come quite as often. And we've seen that the transition play is just not there. It's almost impossible in the playoffs to get a whole lot of rush chances. So they're going to have to capitalize, get some greasy ones, get to the dirty areas. And we're going to need a little bit more of a shoot first mentality from the captain. It starts from the top, and they're going to have to really pepper Ullmark with shots and get in his area, get in his personal bubble a little bit, and make it difficult for him. But I was more encouraged than discouraged with game one. I want to make that very clear. The Panthers are not out of place. This is a team that can compete, and they can win this series. There's just a couple minor tweaks they have to do to match what Boston is experienced enough to know how to do when it comes to postseason hockey.
No doubt. And Paul Maurice spoke about how he liked the first 36 minutes. He talked about how the Florida Panthers played an intelligent game, and then Boston was neutralized the Florida Panthers' speed in the third. And then that's when we saw the script flip. Like the 3-4 minute mark basically was when the Boston Bruins really started to possess it more and keep it away from the Panthers. And Paul Maurice was also asked, how do you get to Ullmark? And he's like, that he spoke about how they have the guys on the net, but not in front of the goal. So hopefully we can expect a few adjustments there for the Cats. And he also spoke about the Boston Bruins' size and weight, which I looked up on Elite Prospects. The average weight for the Boston Bruins is 200 pounds, which is 13th most in the NHL. So the positioning, he was talking about how the positioning around it has to improve, of course. One of the best top fours in the league, in the NHL. And also Paul Maurice was asked by Kobe Guy of Florida Hockey Now about what can Barkov do to improve, and spoke about how we shouldn't expect Barkov to take it all the way 200 feet up the ice. And that is and talking about driving pucks to the net differently. And the way I process what Paul Maurice said is the ability for Aleksander Barkov to use more of his east-west movement to get, especially through the neutral zone, to get down low. And of course, easier said than done. But Barkov, that's a part of his game that he's definitely got to use more. And then of course, Paul Maurice also compared what Barkov needs to do playing like another player, and someone who had a big night on Monday night. And it wasn't anyone on the Panthers. It was on the Los Angeles Kings, and Anze Kopitar, playing more like him. Of course, Stanley Cup champion, Selke Trophy winner as well. And Paul Maurice spoke about looking at that and trying to replicate that part of his game. What do you think about what Paul Maurice had to say there?
Yeah, I mean, since Barkov's been in the league, Anze Kopitar is the guy he's most often compared to, and it is a great comparison. Both really big-bodied left-hand centers. They play 200 feet, top three elite defensive forwards, and their offensive skill, it can be underrated at times, but they're among the best in the game at it. Kopitar has been in the NHL forever. He's won everything there is to win in the NHL. He's a Stanley Cup champion, multiple time Stanley Cup champion. He's been there and he's done that. And he's matched up against Connor McDavid, which is not an easy draw at all.
He was held pointless yesterday.
McDavid. Exactly. And Kopitar ended with, if I'm not mistaken, 3 assists, 3 points, and held McDavid scoreless. The way you do that, Kopitar knows he's not Connor McDavid. He doesn't have McDavid's speed or his skill, or really McDavid's the best player on the planet, and arguably the best player to ever put on skates. Kopitar's not that, and he knows that, but his positioning is so sound, and he's so good at doing the little things. And like you said, the East-West movement, no one in the playoffs is going to let you go coast to coast or come right up the middle, get straight to the net. You're going to have to be creative, and Barkov is a very creative player. It just seems like he holds back a little in the playoffs. It doesn't seem to me like it's a fear of physicality or anything like that. It's almost like he's so focused on not making a mistake, and sometimes you just have to free flow and play the game the way you know how to play. He can't get to the playoffs and lose his creative flair, because that's what makes him such a good player. And it's like you said, the East-West movement, getting to the middle of the ice instead of coming up through the neutral zone up the middle. Get in on a wing and then work your way back to the middle, or some of the crossing actions where he'll drop it to Verhaeghe or Duclair before entering the zone, and then exchange when they get back in the zone. Almost like anyone who's familiar with basketball, a 3-man weave. That's worked so well for them at times, that top line. There's so many ways that they can get more creative about entering the zone, and it'll open things up for Barkov and allow those shooting lanes. But at the same time, if the shots aren't there, if the transition play is not there, sometimes you just have to outwork somebody. You have to get to the front of the net. Barkov's hand-eye is better than just about anyone in the league if he'll get himself in a position where he can tip a puck from in front of the net. And he's big enough and strong enough to do it. There are not many guys in the NHL who can move Barkov when he's on a mission. And I think he just needs to assert himself a little bit more, because like you said, Boston is a big and heavy team, but Barkov is arguably the strongest guy on the ice anytime he's out there. He can muscle his way to the front of the net and get his stick on a puck coming in. And his deflection game is among the best in the sport. So there's a lot of ways Barkov can get his game going here, but it really comes down to how is he going to assert himself. He can't shy away from it. Guys are going to have to be willing to take those hacks and whacks and the cross checks, and a lot of times you draw a penalty doing that, but they're going to have to be ready and willing to get to those areas and take that punishment if they truly want to win the series. That's really what it comes down to, and it starts with Barkov. He's got to assert himself. It all comes back to how he's willing to assert himself and put his handprint on this series. He can dominate. It's just how bad does he want to?
Yeah, no doubt. And with that top line of Barkov, Verhaeghe, Duclair, that was a line that had a shot on goal differential of +2. The second line of Etu, Lundell, and Chucky was +3, while Lombi, Stahl, and Rhino were +3 as well. So those were the two lines that were doing the most work for the Panthers. And even when Tkachuk was up on that top line, they were outshot. Their shot on goal differential was -2 there. So just definitely something that Barkov needs to do as far as generating, as far as using his speed the best that you can, especially in that neutral zone as well. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about what was said with Paul Maurice and Radko Gudas, and we're also going to talk about how long is Alex Lyon's leash, regardless of whether it's his fault or not in game 2. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Gametime. And buying tickets for your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you could stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Don't forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive fresh deals on tickets for football, basketball, hockey, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 2 here on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I got Jacob Winans here for another edition of Winans Wednesday. And Radko Gudas spoke to the media on Tuesday and spoke about how Alex Lyon really came up with saves on goals that should have gone in. And it's crazy crazy how hockey works sometimes. We talk about the fluky goals, the one Marchand scored, and the third one, which is funny enough. I watched the Bally Sports feed for game one, and it felt that the broadcast didn't know that it was on Alex Lyon's pad until 5 minutes after. Even going into that intermission, they didn't really talk about on the replay how it was on Alex Lyon's pad. I didn't know until we refresh Twitter and the ESPN feed shows it. So it was the ESPN feed that also caught it. Also, ESPN showed the part where Tyler Bertuzzi took Nick Cousins' stick when they collided and went to the bench. Something we didn't see on the Bally feed on Monday night as well. So Gudas spoke about the saves that should have gone in, but Lyon was there. But also Paul Maurice spoke about when asked by Greg Wyshynski of ESPN about starting goaltender, and Maurice says way too early for that. And I get it. It's a fluid situation with the goaltending, and Alex Lyon is your third goaltender, but on this run that helped the Florida Panthers get here. But still talking about how he had a A+ performance. Why not just say that he's your goaltender? I just don't quite understand.
Yeah, for me, I think it really comes down to a word you like to use a lot, and it's gamesmanship. I think obviously Bob is still the guy, and when we get to the offseason, it'll be interesting to hear the conversations around that, because it's at the end of the day, it comes down to the last two of the last three postseasons. Bob has not been the go-to starter or has lost that role, but nevertheless, Bob he's still the number one goalie on this team. It's just you're riding the hot hand, and Alex Lyon deserves to get a playoff start because they're not in the playoffs without Alex Lyon. I think you don't. I think the strategy of not publicly naming him starter right now is you keep Boston guessing as long as you possibly can. You don't want to give them a goalie to game plan for on a practice day. If I had to guess, that's why he's doing it. I think we all expect Alex Lyon to be the guy for the next game. I definitely don't know that I would call his performance an A+. I think an A+ is reserved for perfection, and there was at least one goal in that game that drops his grade from an A+ to solid B. But it happens. Every goalie at some point is going to give up one that they'd like to have back, and it'll come back around. Ullmark will definitely give up a softie at some point in this series. It's the nature of the position. I don't think Alex Lyon played badly enough where he should lose the net. I think he made some huge saves to keep the Panthers in it. But I think if we're talking about how long or short his leash is, I think it's one game short. I think if the Panthers lose, regardless of how Alex Lyon plays, if they go down 2-0, Bob will be in net coming back home. And whether that's Alex Lyon's fault or not, it'll be we're going to make a change because we have to shake something up. We have to get something. We have to generate something, change something. So yeah, for Alex Lyon, this next game is huge. Probably the biggest game of his career. It's his status as the starting goalie for this playoff run really rides on this next game for me. Mm-hmm. I think if he puts the team on his back or does just enough to get them a W, I think he's going to continue. But I think this is a do or die moment for him. If they lose, his fault or not, I think the net's back to Bob, and we hope he can steal a game.
Yeah, and like I said at the top of the show, the mission is to get one. You already don't have home ice advantage, and the way the Panthers played off the cycle in their own zone, I wasn't too annoyed of. It was really what happened in the neutral zone that caused the odd man rushes for the Panthers as well. And that's really what the overall issue was for the most part in game one. And it's just unfortunate that he might be the fault or not, but at the same time, it sends a message to the players telling them that they need to lock it down in the slot area below the hashes as well, and just say we're gonna that they're gonna protect their goaltender. And of course, of course, it also goes down to helping them out on the other side. I mean, Paul Maurice was asked about shot volume and his thoughts on and he said that if you're relying on shot volume, that it can be a very dangerous thing to rely on, because and the way I process that is getting too comfortable with just saying, just because you have a certain amount of shots, and I know we use the whole term, throw something on the net and just hope it goes in. But I don't know if I can feel that same level of confidence if it's going to continue any way that it did from game one.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the cycle game off the top here, because regardless of who's in net, whether you go with Alex Lyon or Sergei Bobrovsky for the rest of this series, and I really do feel like we're going to see Bob at some point in this series, or if we're lucky enough to advance, Bobrovsky gets paid $10 million to be the guy to play these games. So I'm not at all discrediting Bobrovsky or saying that the goalie is the position of fault here, whether it's Lyon or Bob.
Right.
I think what you said about the cycle is exactly what we need to hone in on in game two, because it got to a point where the cycle was working, but it was almost working too well, where they just continuously cycled the puck. And at some point, you got to stop cycling it. You have to get a shot on goal. It was like they were just playing possession just to keep it away. You can't play keep away. Goals don't get scored when you're cycling the puck behind the Bruins net. At some point, something's got to get to the net. So if you can turn that cycle into quality scoring chances, now the offense is humming. But I felt like, especially in the first half of the game, the Panthers had a lot of possession time. They had a lot of cycle chances, and it was almost like they just wanted to play it safe and just keep cycling the puck, and you can't really win that way. Which again, that's a really easy thing to correct. It's not something that can't be fixed. At some point, it's just which guy's going to be the one to step up and make a play. Someone's going to have to do it. But yes, when it comes to shot volume, we know all too well that a high number of shots does not equal a high number of quality scoring chances. There's only two ways that you can get this done. Either if you're going to have a low shot total, the quality has to be through the roof. And if you're going to have a high shot total, you have to have traffic. You cannot win the game shooting 45 shots, but having no traffic, no rebounds. The only way to win with that high shot volume is to get a lot of traffic. Get in the dirty areas, deflect a puck. That's how you win games, when you shoot a lot, when you play that throw everything at the net cliche offense. We've seen what happens when the Panthers don't do that. With the entire Bob Boughner tenure was out shooting every team, sometimes by 15, 20, 25 shots a game, but you'd lose because it was all easy for a goalie to see. And we have this running joke in Panthers fandom on Twitter. Everyone is like, well, which subpar below average goalie is going to look like prime Dominik Hasek tonight, because we're going to throw 40 shots on net, but none of them are going to be dangerous. Linus Ullmark is a guy who is going to eat those up, and we saw it happen last year with Andrei Vasilevsky in the second round. We peppered shots at him all series long, but none of them really challenged him, because a lot of them were right to the chest, no traffic, no rebounds, no deflections. You can't win without getting those type of goals. So if we're going to have high shot volume, it's got to be high traffic. It's got to be high deflection rate. It has to be really challenging. You have to create a challenging environment for your goalie. So I'm not really too into the whole shot volume thing. I'm more interested in how can we make this difficult. How can we mess up the sight lines, or change the angles, deflect some pucks, annoy the goalie, get in his crease, bother him. We have the guys on the team that can do that. I just want to see them actually do it, because it's really what got them into the playoffs. The past 10 games or so leading into the playoffs, they've done that better than anybody in the league. Just got to irritate them. It's really no secret sauce. It's not anything complicated. It's just how willing are you to do it. It's not a fun way to make a living, but how willing are you to do it?
Yeah, and we'll see if the Florida Panthers are gonna make those adjustments by getting to the net, and of course what we spoke about earlier with Barkov and his speed, getting more towards the middle. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about what's been going on in the world of the Stanley Cup playoffs through 2 days, and everyone at least playing one game through. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, an April 19th edition of the show. I got Jacob Winans here, and Jacob, what a day one in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We were talking about Anze Kopitar earlier, and then the Los Angeles Kings getting the game winning goal in overtime. That was by Iafallo, and then the Minnesota Wild versus Dallas Stars game where Philip Gustafsson and Jake Ottinger were just putting on a show. That was a great goaltending show, a lot of shots, and with the Minnesota Wild coming out with a win. Ryan Hartman in double overtime for that one. But then let's talk about the day two of the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. The Rangers going into New Jersey, just right across the Hudson, winning 5-1. Their power play clicking. Chris Kreider, tell me if you've heard this before. Chris Kreider power play goal, and Vladimir Tarasenko is scoring early for the New York Rangers as well. Of course, deadline acquisition to help them make a run. And if you're a Florida Panthers fan, you don't feel as bad about your power play going into game one, because the New Jersey Devils had 4 power play opportunities and didn't register a single shot on goal. The New York Rangers had 3 of them on the night. So they were overwhelming on the special teams department. Of course, the big one, of course, that we Florida Panther fans pay attention to, because the Tampa Bay Lightning do live rent-free in our heads, of course, 3 straight Stanley Cup final appearances. They blitz on the Toronto Maple Leafs in game one. Corey Perry was incredible, creating 2 turnovers in the Maple Leafs zone that resulted in goals by one of them by Bellemare, and also Corey Perry getting a goal of his own. Braden Point getting 2 on the night, and also the injuries that happened with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Eric Chernak goes out because of a 5-minute major on Michael Bunting, and then Victor Hedman as well for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He exits after the first period. But also a Charlotte Checkers update. They lose 4-3 to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. Lucas Carlson gets on the board. He on the first goal of the game. The Charlotte Checkers give up four unanswered, and then they make a late comeback by scoring 2 in a matter of 38 seconds. Riley Nash and Sentu Kinnunen on the night, and Matt Gudas was pulled for JF Berube, and then JF Berube didn't give up a goal after that. But Mackie Samoskevich had a opportunity late in the game, skating through 3 defenders, and then missed on a game tying goal opportunity with less than 2. And then Grigory Denisenko had a chance for a penalty shot, but then the referee changed his mind on not calling a penalty shot, and Jordy Kinnear was livid on the Checkers bench, but the Checkers end up losing, and now game 2 is an elimination game for the Charlotte Checkers. Jacob, I want you to give your thoughts on the first 2 days of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, this is the best time of year, and we're fortunate to be a part of it, preparing for game 2 now. For long stretches this year, it did not look like we would be still having games to talk about this time of April, but we're here, and it's exciting to watch, because it actually means something to us, which has not always been the case. The one that I was really interested in, or the 2 that I was really interested in, are Rangers and Devils, because the Devils are such a red flag to me as a playoff team. They did some amazing things in the regular season, but they just remind me so much of the Panthers of 2 years ago. Not even the Panthers of last year, the Panthers of 2 years ago. where the offense was humming. They came into the playoffs red hot, had beaten Tampa a couple times to end the season. And we're thinking, we're about to set the league on fire. We're the young team. We're coming in here. We're going to dominate. And then you get punched in the mouth. And the Devils, their power play was just abysmal. I don't think they're built for playoff success right now. I think they're a team that's taking those lumps, and the Rangers are the great team to teach them that lesson. And for Devils fans, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be upset about. And I don't think this is going to be a series where they get blown out or anything. They're going to compete. It's going to be a good series. But this is these are the lessons you learn in the playoffs, and the Devils got their first one tonight. Very good team though, very talented, very skilled. It just might not be very young. They're going to be a problem in the East for a long time. The Rangers are a veteran-laden team. They've been there. They were there, made a deep run last year, and they're back for blood this season. So they look really good. Tampa and Toronto, it's always interesting, those two teams. It's almost like if Toronto's in the playoffs in the first round, the series is going 7 games. No doubt about it. This is going to be a 7-game series. Tampa, their depth is being tested. They are not as deep as they used to be. The salary cap comes for everybody. And it's their year where the salary cap's starting to take a bite, and now they've lost a couple of key players. It'll be interesting to see if Michael Bunting gets any supplemental discipline, especially since Erik Cernak is now out, presumably with a head injury. Just no reason for that.
He headhunted him on that one.
Yeah, just absolutely no reason for it. And if Cernak is going to miss time, I fully expect Bunting to miss time. There's no chance he'll be playing game 2, in my opinion. Could maybe see a 2. I don't think they'll go any longer than 2 games, but 1 or 2 game suspension without a doubt for Bunting, which is going to really hurt Toronto. They're in dangerous waters again. This is Toronto Maple Leafs hockey. Whether Cernak or Hedman play, Tampa's a team that knows how to win games. Vasilevsky can steal you one, and they've got some veterans like Corey Perry who are so annoying to play against. I mean, my God, he's been doing it forever, and it's just so annoying to watch him continue to succeed in the NHL. But you have to respect it. That's a team that they look like they're trending downward, and then all of a sudden they come out and stomp you in the playoffs. So that's going to be a really fun series. I think it's going 7 games, and when it gets to a 7-game series against Toronto, advantage anyone else.
So no doubt.
So yeah, there's that. And real quick on the Checkers, super heartbreaking loss for them today. Really happy to see our young guys contributing, but I just feel terrible for them because Alex Lyon should be the guy right now in Charlotte, winning them these playoff games. Yeah, I know Zac Dalpe, the captain, so it sucks for them that the Panthers had to poach some of their talent, but happy for the young guys, and hopefully they keep their season alive tomorrow, because for game 2,
Thursday, not tomorrow. Thursday.
Yeah, hopefully they keep their season alive Thursday, because I really do enjoy watching some of our young prospects continue to play hockey this season. This is crucial for their development.
I want to see a little bit more Mackie Samoskevich. Justin Sordiff returned to the lineup for the first time in over a month as well, so he was back there. And of course, it's a little bit of a tough task, him coming from injury as well, and then Dalpe not being there. So before we wrap up here, since Dalpe is with the Florida Panthers right now, is there a chance that we see him on that 4th line in game 2? Because I think there is a chance, especially with a little bit of a careless penalty that Giovanni Smith had that led to the David Pastrnak goal.
I would not be surprised for a couple of reasons. One, and none of them are actually the penalty. One reason, I think Zac Dalpe brings an element of speed to that 4th line that they're really missing right now, and I think he can really help out on the penalty kill as well. So I think putting Zac Dalpe, 4th line right wing, I could really see that. And another thing, that 4th line right now, Colin White is the main guy taking faceoffs. Not necessarily the strongest guy in the faceoff circle, but he's really kind of pigeonholed into that role right now. Zac Dalpe can take some of that pressure off, and Giovanni Smith, you really can't. That's not his game. So I think it adds an element of speed and then balance. You have Colin White / Zac Dalpe at center. Whichever one of them is not at center is at right wing. And then at left wing, you have Nick Cousins. At least everyone is playing on their strong side, because right now Giovanni Smith is playing right wing as a lefty. So couple minor tweaks there. That fourth line hasn't been great lately. I think Zac Dalpe could give them a little boost of energy, a little boost of experience. He's an older guy, he's been around, and he had a couple really big goals and a couple of really solid games this year in the lineup. So no knock on Giovanni Smith. Maybe just not the best matchup for him in this series. Zac Dalpe might be skating fourth line, right wing, or center come game 2.
Yeah, so we'll see if those changes actually do come to fruition when game 2 does come about. Once again, the Florida Panthers, Boston Bruins, 7:30 on ESPN, or if you're in the region of South Florida, Valley Sports Florida is the place to watch, and hopefully the Florida Panthers can find a way to tie this series before returning to FLA Live Arena on Friday night. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Jacob Winans 8. I'll definitely be super active the rest of the series and however long the Panthers are playing hockey this season, all the way through the off season. That's where you can always find me. I appreciate it.
Awesome, Jacob. Thank you so much, and I will see you next Wednesday, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for the everydayers, make sure you come back tomorrow for Thursday's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where we be breaking down game 2 of this 7-game series between the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.